you for the Metropolitan Nashville Fair Board of Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, June 11th, and I call this meeting to order. I'll begin by reading the legal notice. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Metropolitan Fair Board of Commissioners today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the board's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact your own independent legal counsel. Our first order of business will be to approve the minutes of the April 9th, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can I vote or any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 And aye. All opposed? Well, there's no opposition. All right, thank you. Next will be public comment period.
Nobody signed up.
All right, no one signed up, so we will move on. Next will be monthly informational reports. We will have our financial update.
All right, I know I'm not going to do nearly a good job as Satrice does, but in your packets you'll find a draft financial package through May 31st. And please note that these are preliminary numbers as the month has not closed. Our revenues through May 2024, almost $3.3 million, and our expenses through May is $3.8 million for a loss of $585,000. Depreciation has totaled $1,068,000. You can see in the charts below that summary of our budget and current year-to-date preliminary actuals. Flea market at $981,000, corporate sales $1.2 million, the track $55,000, the divisional fair $708,000, contracts $204,000. Other, which includes interest and EBID, and EBID is surplus. If we have like surplus equipment and such, we will put those to auction and get revenue from that. That is $115,000, and other financing sources have not been allocated yet. Those would be the approved subsidy that council approved last year. Our expenses, payroll is totaled $1.6 million, utilities $420,000, purchase services approximately $800,000, supplies $180,000, communications $15,000, temporary service at $131,000, security services $162,000, and then IT services, our insurance permits and low cap. Those are a lot of fixed costs that we get from other departments, and then other, generally because of the fair, travel, award royalties of $47,000 for a total of $3.8 million. If you look at the dashboards, you'll see revenue by division. We've got it broken down by flea market, corporate sales. Our three largest areas, of course, are corporate sales at 37%, our flea market at 30%, and then the divisional fair at 22%. The revenue by type, we actually break it down into a little bit more fine, more detailed categories, including our event space rentals, booth rentals, and the largest percentage there is our booth rent at 24%, and then event space rentals, which is the expo building rentals, and then parking at 17%. I believe the chart at the bottom left is actually projected revenue for June. I think that's just a typo. We expect $61,000 coming in for the flea market, and then corporate sales at 56%. track at 7% for June. Our percentage of revenue by type, again, is just another way to break down the projected revenue for the month. Again, 37, almost 38% we expect to come from booth rent, parking at 21%, and event space at 21%. The rest are equipment rentals, concession, and track and contracts. And then on the second page of your dashboard, you'll see the budget tracker. As you can see, we're doing quite well on our expense, and we are under budget in almost all of the categories. Well, it looks like all of the categories. And then our expense distribution. This really hasn't changed much from previous months. Our payroll expenses are 41%. That is our largest expense, and purchase services at 20%, and then utilities and low cap are about 10 and 11%. So those really don't change significantly from month to month, but gives you kind of an idea of our monthly expense distribution. I am happy to answer any questions you may have about the dashboards. Now, Cetrice is working on year end. Our fiscal year ends at the end of June, and so we're going to be doing a lot of work. We won't even have final fiscal year numbers in your July meeting because that's a little bit too soon yet, because we're going to have to make sure all our receivables in, our invoices. So as soon as, we get those final numbers, we'll have a pretty decent idea for you in July on our final totals, but the audited financials, that won't be until later in the fall.
Any questions? Commissioner Hartley.
Thank you, Laura. A couple questions. Number one, so this is reflecting then through, it says through June 30th. No, that's the fiscal year. So these numbers go through last month. So we get about 2 months. This is showing about 10 months of the year. That's the question I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, so on this page, on this summary page, so it just shows our total fiscal year, but it is preliminary through the end of May.
Okay.
So it's 11 months.
Okay.
1 month to go.
Great. So obviously you guys are killing it on expenses. I mean, you're only at 75% of your budget. Do we feel like we're on track for the corporate sales revenue stream? It seems like it might be a little light, but I couldn't tell if you expected to make that up before the end of the fiscal year.
We're pretty busy this coming up month, but if you look at the projected revenue total for corporate sales, again, I believe that is a typo. We're looking at bringing in approximately $60,000 for corporate sales in June. So our budget was a little, we may hit budget.
Okay, because you got $200K to go in the budget.
On the corporate sales.
You got $200,000 to go in the budget for the end of the year. So we got $50K projected for June.
Yeah. So we'll probably be a little light on that.
Okay.
For
that sounds
revenue.
Good. All right. So let's just consider that, obviously, moving forward budgeting. Obviously, we're still getting roughed into a new building and a new setup, so we're going to zero those in. But obviously, if we can look at the team sort of finessing that to get on for next year. And related to that, when will we see the new, we have the new fee structure, we had the fee study. When do you think you'll see that start to be applied? I can't remember. Is that going to be next year, or when do we see that?
That's correct. That's July 1.
Okay, so July 1, we'll start seeing it. We should probably ask the trees to reflect that in the categories. I'm really interested in see the bill back number. I think that's going to be obviously a big revenue generator for us. So
yep.
If she's not already planning to do that, I think that should certainly be a revenue type.
Yeah, the other thing I'll mention with this coming up budget is, yes, we will start seeing the new fee structure implemented as of July 1. So these numbers here do not reflect that. The other thing that we're doing is we're adding 2 business units. So when we started the fair 2 years ago, we had a new business unit reestablished. It was already created so that we could keep fair related revenue and expenses completely separate from our other programming units. So I think Satrice has explained this before. We're going to do something similar starting July 1 with the flea market, and then for contracts and leases. So everything like our contract with Track Enterprises, our contract with Walsh Management, all of our contract revenue that comes in from contracts and leases will go into that designated fund. And then we're working on labor distribution so that we make sure that we can account for all of the labor that is associated with all of those different business units. So you're going to see maybe a different, I don't know how she's exactly going to, show it on these summaries, but it's going to be much better for us to be able to track, profit and loss. And it's something that we've talked about for a year now on kind of changing how we do our accounting so we get a better idea of what each programmatic area is making and spending.
And just to follow up, I think that's great. And again, defer to you guys in the details, but I think expense management and revenue management for each business unit, let's have a broken out, graph for each of those so we can see how we're tracking against those budget numbers.
Any other questions? All right, well, moving on, we'll have our event update. We'll begin with Nashville soccer.
Afternoon, Commissioners, Director Womack. You have the report that we submitted. There wasn't really that much to report on since we last met. The one thing we did in May that was different from our usual activities, we held the Vanderbilt commencement at our stadium. So 4,300 students graduated at Geodis Park. So first commencement we've had at that stadium. We also unfortunately parted ways with our head coach. So that change happened at the end of May, and we're working on hiring another coach. And then the other thing I would add is I'm a member of the Community Advisory Committee, which is for the Community Benefits Agreement, and we're working on finalizing the annual report from 2020 through 2023. And once that's done, I think they're going to send a copy to this board. So you should be seeing that in the next couple of weeks. Other than that, that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks.
Nope, thank you. Next, we will have Bob Racing.
Thank you. Hello, this afternoon. We had a race the previous Saturday, a couple days ago, that went again as normal. A lot of race cars, medium crowd. So everything seems to be going as projected for the year. The weather was good. We have our big NASCAR race coming up the Thursday, the 27th, that you let us do. And we still expect a similar crowd as we talked about. Good to, probably not sold out, but a good solid crowd. We only have 2 divisions racing, so we're being conscious of the time. I'm shooting for 9 p.m. to be done, things of that nature. Won't start till school, or midday. So other than that, again, everything's on our website information-wise, and I think everything's going pretty well under control. So if you have any questions.
Any questions? Nope.
Okay, and as always, I always want to invite you out, or your neighborhoods or things like that you want to work with. We work with the call with the community every month with Laura. So again, anything like that you want to participate with us in the racing, we're more than happy to help. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Fair. Someone here from Fair.
Sorry, my legs asleep. All righty. Good to see y'all today. We are excited this year. The theme for this year's fair is a barn good time, September 6th through the 15th. So definitely going to come out for a great time. We are excited to have, right now, we've got our new employee today. She's her second day on the job, so to give her a round of applause, this is Bella Estrada. I'm sure you got some water, but we're excited to have her on staff. It's one of those things when when you get somebody that's eager to come in and learn and jump right in, and we are excited to have her. We have a lot of new events this year that we're working on, and we will have. Central Region Office this year will be bringing in a grilling contest that we'll have under Shed 1. They'll fill it up with kids and grilling pork chops, chicken, steak. So if they need some judges, I'll definitely spread some names around. But we're excited to have that contest from the Central Region Office, which will be new. We also are looking at bringing back a beauty pageant. We have not had a beauty pageant here the last 2 years. The real reason for that was we were not a member of the Tennessee Association of Fairs yet. So in most pageant worlds, the winner from the pageant will get to go represent their fair in January against all the other fairs of the fair. There's like 55 county fairs that they get to compete against. So we just really didn't feel that it was fair to have a winner here that could not be eligible to go compete. So this year will be our first year. We are a member now of the Tennessee Association of Fairs and recognized. So we're excited about that. We are in talks with the Carnival, trying to move our kiddie land up here in the upper plaza. One, to free up some space on the midway to accommodate more folks. On Friday and Saturday nights, our midway gets really crowded. And the experience, for the guest experience, the kiddie rides, being kids and being a parent, you're mixed with teenagers and others. So it's nice to have those separated. They're going to come out, survey the area to see if they can make it work, bring a generator over to be able to power those rides, try to make sure that they will not disturb our livestock animals under our outdoor arena there. So that right there will also hopefully bring more traffic flow to our courtyard, which is something that we're trying to accomplish. Some of the other things that we're doing, it's a little bit on hold until we get our food and beverage contract finished. We're looking at adding a Skyliner lounge out here under the canopy where a fairgoer can get their food, come into the lounge, and have a beverage and enjoy their, food and be away from, just take a rest and have a craft beer or so forth. So that's something that has to be details worked out with our new food and beverage. We're bringing back the Buckshee Brew Fest, and of course that also has to be worked out with our food and beverage because we have to use their beer license. But that was a really good event last year. I think we can capitalize off that, get more participants to come. Also, we're looking at trying to, the art, incorporate the art that we got, the new piece of art with the fair. It's something that's going to be a focal point of the fair. People will be taking selfies with that. That's something that we feel that, especially at nighttime, if you have not had a chance to see that lit up, it's a work. It's going to be a nice addition to the fair. It will be one of those things like at the fair in Perry, Georgia, the Georgia National Fair. Their center focal point is a tower, a clock tower. So ours will be that art. So that's nice to have that as a place where people can say, meet me here at, when families divide up, they'll have an area to meet. So I think that will end up being the meeting place for people to come back to. So that's one of the things that we've never had that before on the grounds, and I think that will be a nice addition. We're continuing our partnership with the Metro Public Library with their Read It summer program, Read It to Win program, where they get if they read a certain amount of books or so many hours, they get prizes. That seemed very well last year. Overall, we tried a lot of different promotions. It's kind of hard to say which ones were the best promotions, but we're going to continue those promotions because our attendance definitely went up. So we'll probably even add more promotions. One of the new promotions that we are contemplating is, since we will be a community on our grounds, this will be someone's backyard. We need to make sure that the folks that are living here next to us, adjacent, have an opportunity in a multi-day pass where they can come, eat every night. You may not want to ride rides, but come down, enjoy music, have a beverage, have that kind of experience, especially on the weeknights when the crowds are much slower, much more spacious. So, but we're definitely excited. The next 90 days, things will be moving much quicker. So we're excited for September, the best 10 days.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Can you just say the dates again?
September the 6th through the 15th, 615.
All right, 615.
615.
Any other questions? I had one question though. Have you guys started looking at like sponsorships, things like that?
We're always continuing at sponsorships. That's one of the struggles we have. We ultimately, this property, we need to figure out a way to break that egg. Typically, what we're getting is low-hanging fruit. Is what we're doing. We, as Metro, from my understanding, we cannot go out and pay someone on a percentage. That's against Metro codes, rules. But no matter how you do it, no matter if we hire a sponsor person to come in-house and we pay them 6 figures, it's going to be expected to bring in 5 times the money. So it's a percentage no matter how you look at it. Their job's going to be based on a percentage. And if they do not meet their percentage, they would lose their job ultimately. So I'm just throwing that out there just to say that percentage is to pay sponsorship finders. There's companies out there, Nashville, NASCAR. Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm not.
Oh.
So I think you're venturing off to some other
okay.
place. So I just asked if you started, do you have a letter or a packet ready, that type of thing? Because this is going to be the first year that we can actually get anything over $5,000. Because we introduced legislation that we can get money. So do you have you begun to develop that packet?
Yeah, we have
share.
A sponsorship deck. Yes. Yeah. We can definitely do that, share it with the board. Normally what we on those sponsorship decks, we try to make it for that sponsor so that it ties in. So we can try to make something a little more generic, but the way our deck is like Milk Bar, they're individual. We'll find someone to try to sponsor the Milk Bar or something, but we can give you a sponsorship deck with different prices that is a little more generic, that if you see somebody, and definitely if you've got a contact, that is the hardest thing for us, is getting to the right person.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't really hear. It's hard.
Oh, that's fine. So, any other questions? All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's it for event updates. Next, we'll go to our executive director's report.
I just have a couple things. I don't know if you noticed, for anybody who came in through the courtyard side, we have finished our courtyard restoration. It looks beautiful. We're going to keep it off limits until the fair because it is going to get a lot of use. So it's sodded. So we need to make sure that it, really has a chance to take root, literally. Before the fair in September. So we're going to kind of keep it off limits, but it does look beautiful, and we're really grateful that we got that project done. And then I was going to introduce Bella, but Scott got to do that. Welcome again, Bella. And then Scott brought up, I just wanted to bring up the status of the food and beverage contract so you guys are aware. We have started, so we're waiting right now for procurement to send us a draft contract. We've sent them all the information that they need. Scope of work has been done. I had shared that to you probably about the beginning of the year. So that hasn't changed. So it's going to be a joint contract with us and municipal. The same company was awarded both. And so we're just, again, waiting for procurement to get us the draft contract for a final review, and then we'll get that routed. We had a site visit with them last week. We're very, very optimistic. I think the transition is going to be pretty smooth, but we've got to bring them up to speed, do client briefings and all of that. So we're going to try to get that done as soon as possible with procurement.
Can you say some other clients that the F&B vendor works with? Do we have some examples of who else they work with?
I did not hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, the one time I didn't lean into the mic. This is I said it over here. I just wanted everybody to hear it. This is the largest room for the smallest number of people. Can you give us a list of other clients that the F&B vendor works with? And if you don't have it today, if you could just send it around. I'd just love to look and see who else they're working with.
Yes, I believe that they had to submit a reference list, so I can pull that for you and send it off to you. Yes.
So, and I have a question. A few meetings ago, we actually established like a sort of a subcommittee of people that were supposed to look at some of the RFPs and things. Like, y'all remember that? There were some people that were going to.
I remember Laura did ask for volunteers. I don't think I personally volunteered, to be honest, but I remember us talking about that.
So did you volunteer?
Maybe.
Yeah, I remember.
Did I not?
Was, yeah.
Do you need me to volunteer, Laura? I can.
Right, because I think some of those questions, and the reason why I bring that up is because I think there are questions like that, and then it's too late to ask once I sign the contract, right? So I had questions, I looked at a contract and I looked at some of the concerns, and I'm like, well, why am I signing this contract? Because these are some serious concerns here for that particular contract. And then I was like, well, I thought we had a committee. We had established sort of a subcommittee, people that were supposed to, a couple of members that were going to work with you to look at the RFPs from a board's perspective before we actually made final decisions on them. So are we doing that or are we not?
That model was not used for this committee. And if I missed that, my apologies. We've just went forward we've been working on this RFP since April of 2023. So it's been in the queue for quite some time. But we can do that moving forward for sure.
Yeah, I think Jasper has a good point, Laura, just from the point of view of, the size of the engagement. But at the same time, I agree. I mean, I didn't bring it up, so, it's a fair point. But I think that's a really good point, Jasper. Anything that's of appreciable size, we want to make sure we just put our eyes on it, either in one of these meetings or in a subcommittee, either one.
So, are there any other questions? Okay, moving on. So the capital project update. Mr. Higginbotham.
Do I have this right? Am I on? Thank you, Commissioners and Director Womack. So we're in good shape on all the projects. Everything's proceeding well. So at Fair Park Phase 2, you'll see the entry upgrades out here that have just been done. We got the landscaping in. We got gates and bollards coming in. And then we're working that project more towards closeout. So everything's moving towards a closeout, which will happen soon.
David,
Yes.
We have a big echo. Can you have your mic closer to your mouth?
Me?
Yes.
Like that?
Thank you.
There? That's pretty close. So on infrastructure part 2, we've got the intersection and the continuation road. That's through permitting. It's been through the first phase. We're going through the second phase of the permitting right now. And we're doing a lot of coordinating with NGO and WEDOT with their participation on these 2 projects. So that we'll be finalizing that hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Fair Plaza and Speedway Alley right up here. This is going to go through, it looks kind of dirty right now, but within about 3 months, that is going to transform into something really, really nice. I think everybody's going to enjoy that. So all that's coming along. They're on the hardscape right now. So what follows that is usually When they get done with all that, they've got some other things they'll do, then landscape irrigation, lighting, and stuff like that. So that'll all be coming down the road. Some of the additional projects, so we had the arena slab, which was just recently poured. Laura brought up the grassing that's been done, all the landscaping that's been done out here, which looks really, really good. And then we had lot number 2 was just recently surveyed, so we're going to take a look at that and see what we got there. Right now, everything's moving really, really well as we kind of move through this permitting phase on infrastructure part 2 for the other 2 components. Those projects will be coming online shortly thereafter. And then on the, so we have the development schedule. So what you're seeing there is basically reflecting the draft that was presented to you all. I think it was in the April meeting or may have been the May meeting. So this is reflecting exactly what we had in that schedule. And we have a lot of confirmation on the 2 components on infrastructure part 2. We've got the Windgrove intersection and stuff. Once we got all the permitting identified, we know, how long it's going to take to get this actually into construction. So that's how this development schedule is coming out over the next 18 months. I can, on pillars, excuse me, I want to keep this as close as I can. So on the pillars dashboard, I don't dig into Ed's dashboard too much. There's some detail behind it that he uses to bring the numbers together. I am heavily involved in all the budgets for all the projects, and we're in good shape on all of them. All the invoicing, applications for payment. We have Roxy in here with Alliance. All the reporting, that's all tracking well and tracking right with the project. So everything's kind of just moving along and tracking with the progress of everything. Does anybody have any questions?
Remind me what lot is lot 2?
Say that again?
Which lot is lot 2?
It's just right over here, right across from the art, the sculpture. It's just that little lot over there. There's a lot sitting there.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Between the Wedgwood extension and the...
It's between 50 Forward and the art.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got you. Where there's we have a bunch of the...
Storage.
Storage right now.
Yes.
What are we surveying that for?
So we would like to have that more functional. And so we got it surveyed to develop a concept on expanding that area into a flat area that we can use for additional parking in the fair. So we had to have it surveyed to see how high the retaining wall would need to be if we brought it around, because our property line is actually kind of way up on that gravel hill.
Yeah, you mentioned this before. Yeah.
So that's why we surveyed it, to see if we can flatten that out and make it much more usable for everybody on campus.
That's not a leased parcel. That's under the control of the Fairgrounds, and we're looking at that to kind of expand it and make it more usable. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
And the work that we're doing up at the multipurpose building, the maintenance building that's up on the backside of Lot 10, we'll be able to have a lot more storage up there. And so, looking to get a lot of that equipment out, secured up there, and then empty that lot out. And then hopefully that'll help support some of the kiddie rides and things for the fair moving forward.
I'm sorry, I missed the maintenance building, so it's way back there. So sometimes it gets left off, but that's another useful project for sure. So there's a lot of these useful projects that are coming online here that are going to benefit the fairgrounds for sure, for sure.
For Speedway Alley, the side that is closer to the racetrack, who's responsible for completing that portion of the landscaping and the stuff that's off of the roadway?
So up on the, are you talking Benton?
Speedway Alley alley, because the road it's accessible now, because when I left the last soccer match, cars were coming out of there, so they were exiting on Speedway Alley, but the side, especially towards the track, I mean, it's not finished or.
That's
not,
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is part of the project that we have a participation agreement with Market Street. So we took some of the infrastructure money and gave it to Market Street to build out that roadway. They're behind schedule because of factors beyond all of our control with permitting and such, but they will be finishing that project, as well as Fair Plaza in front of 445 Park Commons. So that is all part of that infrastructure Part 2 work. And then as part of that kind of related, the legislation to rename our Speedway Alley has been filed, and so it will be going to council in the next meeting to rename that road Coliseum Way.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to mention really quick is David had mentioned the MOU. So that is something that we're working on with transit. And correct me if I'm wrong, Erica and Terry, code specifies that any intradepartmental MOUs have to go to council for approval if they have a value of over $500,000. How we're going to work the improvements of the Windgrove project is since the NDOT portion, our entrance portion, and the new inbound transit stop are so related, and we're going to be building it under one contract, we're going to pay for the MTA improvements, and they're going to be reimbursing us, and we'll be doing that by MOU. It is similar to what we did with the outbound station. We haven't quite determined what the budget is. It's really right on the limit of whether or not it has to go to council. So we're refining that budget, and then we can present that MOU to you as soon as it's done, and we've got a kind of a solid budget figure. So we may or may not have to go to council with that.
Any other questions? Oh, we're good. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And so we have no one here from Market Street, right? Okay. So I guess next will be old business. Do we have anything that we have not, that we need to wrap up? I don't think so. So I think I discussed the subcommittee one was the one I was going to bring up because because I said the subcommittee one was something that I was going to bring up in old business because we had made a decision to create the subcommittee, so I wanted to see what the status of with that. But we already have the answer. I already have the answer to that, so we can move on to new business. And the first item would be the consideration of adopted COLA percentage and merit increase for the executive director. And I will open it up for discussion.
Do we have like a recommendation from Metro HR about what the general guidance is?
Well, in the current budget discussions right now, the mayor is, in the mayor's budget, he is proposing a 3.5% increase in COLA and a 3% increase in pay for employees, for county employees. That's just his recommended budget. It hasn't finished, council could come back with something else. They are, people are pushing for 5% increases. I don't know where the money's going to come from, but that's what some people are pushing for.
That's why, on the agenda, that's why it says adopted COLA percentage, because we don't know what that is yet. Until the council votes on the budget and it is approved, we're not sure what that is, but it was assumed that whatever is adopted by council, like Jasper said, right now it's 3.5% for COLA, 3% for merit, nothing above that, just whatever is approved.
So there's no range for merit, or at least not as of right now. Council could determine to have a range for that.
Yeah, right. Council could determine, and so I think that it puts us in an awkward position. And one of the things that I wanted us, that I have been looking at and thinking about, was that maybe, and I don't know if it'll work because the other one hasn't worked yet, but I wanted to try to see if I can get a couple of people to form a subcommittee, a personnel subcommittee that could, take a look at it and then come up with a recommendation. So seeing what the city council or the mayor, what's going to come out of that, because if we don't know, I don't want us to say we're going to adopt whatever it is they're going to adopt, but nobody knows what they're going to adopt. And then we can always come back and retroactively pay. But I would like to take a look at, see what we, if we do need to come up with a range, or what are we, what's going to, working with HR and figuring out what we can do as a board, what we should do as a board, and then bring that recommendation back to the board at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense I'm not an expert in pay. Metro HR probably is, so I think it makes sense to tap into the resources we have. I think that's a good idea, Jasper.
And just for mechanics, and this is probably more a question for you guys, but we have to vote on this today, even if we don't have a number. No, we're just discussing, right? Okay.
We don't have to.
Okay. So, and the idea of the subcommittee is that subcommittee would be determining based on, once council has a number, to then determine the number internally here for Fairgrounds?
To make a recommendation to the board, yes.
But based on
information you receive.
Which understood on the kind of like what the one recommendation that we will have from HR that would be 3.5, and say they bump from 3 to 4%, right? So we have that information. Then what is this subcommittee reviewing? And let me try to explain kind of where I'm going is, we're going to make a decision based on the recommendation that HR makes, and then what other performance are we reviewing? What are, to me, the subcommittee, if we're going to create one for that, it's as important to create what should we be reviewing forward, right? Because backwards it feels kind of unfair to say, well, now we're going to qualify your performance based on what we're just going to come up with right now in a year that already happened, right? So just to keep that in mind. And when do we know council? I should know this, but when do we know council's next week?
You're absolutely right, and it's about coming up with a plan for going forward.
To how to measure.
What are we going to be looking at? What are we, how are we going to make our decisions? How the board, should operate moving forward, right? On this particular issue, yes.
Right, because we do have then that deliberation, like we have the liberty to make that deliberation on the merit side of, or in all of it. Do you guys know?
I just wanted to point out that there is already a procedure specified in the rules and policies that says an annual performance review shall be completed by the chair or the vice chair in the absence of the chair of the Board of Fair Commissioners. A recommendation may be made to the Fair Board for a merit-based pay increase commensurate with Metro guidelines and review of funding availability.
Okay, but it doesn't say that.
If I may, can I add one more thing?
Right.
We're talking about subcommittees here. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that subcommittees are subject to meeting under the exact same circumstances that a full board meeting meets under, that it has to be noticed, it has to be in a public meeting, it has to be noticed enough in advance that, it's published and people know that they can come. So that is a little bit of trouble.
I mean, it's not trouble, it's people's money. So they should know what's going on. So,
To that point, though, but I think my concern would be we're a very small board, so we're kind of like a de facto subcommittee already. Is that it's people's money, but also this costs money, right? Having them sitting there.
they don't have to be here. We just have to notice it.
There just has to be a notice?
Right, yes.
Yeah, it being televised is not required by the Open Meetings Act, but
Okay.
the public notice and meeting in a public building and, having that adequate notice be sufficiently far in advance of the meeting, all of those elements are,
Like show it in the calendar and all that stuff?
yeah.
Any other discussion? Yes.
Yeah, currently we have 4 commissioners. What would this, or who would this subcommittee consist of?
Well, like I said, I don't know if it'll work because the last one hasn't worked yet. But it was that recommended like 2 people, ask 2 people, and hopefully we will have a 5th member. We will get full. I don't know. I mean, we have an update on that. That was one of the things I wanted to ask. During the executive director's report, do we have an update on that or what that process is? How that process is going. But we, hopefully we will get a 5th member. But the recommendation will be at least 2 people, ask 2 people to at least serve.
Do we have to volunteer for this subcommittee, or will you, as the chair, appoint the subcommittee?
I mean, I would ask for volunteers, but I will also be ready to appoint.
Cool.
I think certainly the idea of gathering additional information makes a lot of sense. Again, as I said, I'm not an expert on this. And honestly, number one, Laura, we're talking about your salary, so thank you for being awkward with us as we go along through this. Ultimately, I do think it makes sense to arm ourselves with information, to follow the best practices, especially of the resources we have available to us through the Metro government already and the Metro HR functions. So I definitely think we should do that, whether we do it as a subcommittee or we just gather information and bring it back to our regular meeting to have discussion. I'm equally comfortable with both of those, since I think we'll have continued discussion at another meeting anyway. But I definitely think we need to gather more information. So that's my take.
Yeah, but piggybacking on that, I think that I would just be resistant to over-formalize an exercise for gathering more information, right? Because at the same time, I would say, I don't know if it's necessary to have a subcommittee or just address that in old business, new business every time that we meet, right? With more information. So I don't know if the volunteering is more for someone to be the one that gathers information and probably reduce the bureaucracy of, because we're just trying to talk here, like, what are other rules that the subcommittees would have to abide by, right? It's, if I'm in charge of gathering more information from HR, then that means that I talk to HR Metro as in representation as a proxy of the board, just to learn more what they say directly, so it's not everything passed through Laura's team, right? So like something like that is probably a little bit more efficient in my view than if we over-formalize it, then we're going to have to be living by all those rules and then make sure that we're not breaking rules. And
there aren't any rules other than you publish the meeting. That is taking this template from this and sending an email to Metro and saying, hey, can you post this? And then sending out an email saying people that we're having a meeting. Like,
but that's also having more meetings and having to attend more meetings, right? And I don't know what are the rules for appointing someone to a subcommittee, but I could be appointed to a subcommittee that I'm not willing to participate.
And you don't have to be appointed. I mean, I said I would say volunteers.
But because there are no rules also means it can create complication and unnecessary friction. Are we trying to have subcommittees, or are we trying to have more information to make decisions?
I would think subcommittee, because we need to come up with, I think that we should be coming up with procedures going forward. And it's not just necessarily about the director's salary. I mean, personnel committee is personnel committee. There could be other issues that come up in the past that we just need to be equipped to handle. Like, what is the as a board? Like, I mean, she's not the only employee of the Fairgrounds. So she's the executive director and she manages the other employees, but there are other employees. So what as a board, what are our, personnel responsibilities. I think that's what this committee, that's what I was thinking that I would charge this committee with. So it's not just, so it'll be an ongoing thing. It's not just for this particular. Like you will be given other, the committee would be given other responsibilities to take a look at. Like what is, reviewing the current the personnel policies that we have here on the fairgrounds. Like making sure that things are, just still operating. I think it's to me, I think it'll be helpful. And I also think that the more people, because everyone here has different expertise in different, views, in different areas. You may offer something that other people aren't thinking about at the time to help move things, along. Yes.
I was just going to add that if you're looking at changing your rules and procedures going forward, that probably should be a separately noticed agenda item, because right now as I was reading to y'all in Roman numeral 4A of your rules and procedures, it says an annual performance review shall be completed by the chair or the vice chair. In the absence of the chair of the Board of Fair Commissioners, a recommendation may be made to the board for a merit-based pay increase commensurate with Metro guidelines and review of funding availability. So if you want to amend that to add like a subcommittee procedure, that may be something we need to do in a future agenda.
Yeah, but we're not changing that process. That process can still stay. What I'm saying, but it doesn't say that we can't add something else. We can't do anything else.
I just think if you're going to formalize it as something that you're going to use going forward, it probably should be incorporated into the rules and procedures.
And it could be, we can take a look at that, but there's nothing there that says that we can't do that. We can't begin that process now.
If the subcommittee idea is to kind of, I guess, to go deeper into specific subjects or areas of interest, right? Is there a compromise somewhere in the middle where should we add those, say, sections to the existing meetings, right? To say, well, let's discuss personnel, right? It's probably also a better way to say, like, well, our meetings may be longer that way, but it's also, they're more effective as in what we're talking about and whatnot, and say, then if they become too cumbersome, too long, too into the weeds, then we see whatever could affect a change in any kind of bylaws and whatnot, right? Because right now that wouldn't be changing anything at all, right? We do get to choose, okay, in section 4, now we're going to be talking personnel, and then we're going to be talking revenue, we're going to be talking what subjects C, D, and E, right?
I think that's a really good idea, Diego, because I think Jasper made a good point earlier, and I share your concerns about, again, we didn't bring it up, so we shouldn't be too mad at Laura, but, the F&B contract, I think we probably should look at that. So we might just think, can we structure the main meeting to add a few bullets to make sure we cover those issues? I think it's a really good idea, Diego.
The same way that we're looking at finance, right? Because you have a great point. It's numbers are not the only thing that are happening here, right? Those barely reflect a lot of what's happening. So maybe just have different sections within the existing meetings to say, all right, finance, personnel, operations, if anything that we want to get a little bit more granular. And sometimes there will be topics, sometimes there won't be topics to discuss in those areas, and that's fine, right? Maybe that's a way. If I understand correctly, that's much easier to implement. As of next meeting, we want to add these 3 subsections within a meeting instead of having to figure out how can we structure, I guess, too new of a structure. Yeah. Again, if the goal is to go with specificity and kind of like roll up our sleeves and get into specific subjects, maybe we make the meetings longer.
Any other discussion?
I don't know if we need a motion, but I definitely support adding a discussion of the general standing item of personnel and a general standing item of significant transactions to our meeting agenda.
And probably even state of ops, I think because some of those things are kind of like implied in a budget, numbers, finance type of topics, right? But there's going to be, at least in my previous experience dealing with other departments at Metro, there's a lot of operational stuff that won't show up in a budget problem until later. And if we're discussing some of those things that might be helpful too, right? To have a quick report from your ops person, quick report from all the areas that will compromise, right? That will comprise the whole organization, right? So I think personnel, operations, and we can always keep adding or tweak as we go.
So, any other discussion? Okay, cool. So, and I think that the charter does say that we can create subcommittees. But I'm trying to remember, does it say that we have to vote on those? I think the chair can create subcommittees. Correct.
Yes, Section 3 of Article 2 of the Charter says that the said Board of Fair Commissioners shall have full power to prescribe rules and regulations for its own government and organization. And then it continues, but that's the relevant passage that you're referring to, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
And then those rules and regulations that you have adopted are incorporated into the rules and procedures and that are also called the bylaws that is this existing public document.
Yep, that's correct. So I guess what we'll do is, I don't know, let me see. I think I need I guess we can leave this conversation and go into the next. If there's no
Can we come up for that to be old business, I guess, for the next meeting to determine which of those specific topics, right? Like for me, it's the way that we're having finance conversation, similar, we have one of our tenants come report back. There may be other areas that still would want to hear more about certain specific subjects regarding tenants, again, areas of personnel operations, et cetera, that we could add to that. Maybe for next meeting, we discuss in old business and then try to determine which of those areas we want to start exploring as a formal part of the actual structure of a meeting, or an existing meeting, that is. What do we need to do to add another bullet point to the agenda?
For the July agenda, you mean?
For our agenda as a board.
I suppose there's always a possibility of a specially called meeting in the interim, but...
No, if it was just to add a subject, say the same way that we have here, your monthly informational reports,
So
you have
do you
financial
I
update.
can do that.
Jasper just controls the agenda.
Yeah. So we have A, B, C, D. If we can just add E, personnel update, right? And operations update, tenants updates.
I do think it makes sense to amend the rules and procedures to adopt these committees going forward on a more formal and...
All we're doing is adding to the agenda of this board, and that's within Jasper's control as the chair. That's all we want to do. We don't want to.
The chair is usually just going to be drafted by the staff and approved by the chair.
Yeah.
So the way the agenda is written is no problem. If you're asking
That's all
about
we're gonna do.
degree of notice or whatever.
No, that's all we're going to do. We're
This
just
is a
going to
baby
add that as a
step in
standing
lieu
item.
of creating subcommittees. This is just for us to discuss here.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I would additionally ask on the substantive point we're discussing, and I think we can probably ask Laura to gather this. I would love to get from Metro HR essentially a summary of what the council has passed and sort of what they would give as a best practice. And they don't need to come to this meeting. They could just send an email and we can just read it out. That's fine. But just somebody from that function, unless you object, Jasper or anyone else, I think that's good to have.
That probably already exists. If I remember correctly, HR issues their formal recommendation, and that's what actually both mayor's office and council is supposed to base their decision on, right? Like it's one of their pieces of information, so that should be already documented somewhere. It's just a matter of for us to get that.
As long as it's in
verbatim
this,
recommendation.
as long as it's in this
Right,
manila envelope
and-
next month, it'll be all good.
Yeah. All I'm saying is I don't think we're asking for something new. It already exists. It's there.
Right. And I think they will come in and talk to us as well. So like I had a conversation before I signed that previous contract that I talked about, I actually had a conversation with the procurement department to raise my concerns, and they've offered to come in and talk to us about that process. And we identified some of the flaws within their practices, which was some of my concerns, and they agreed with my concerns. And so they're willing to come in and talk about those with us. So I know HR will be most likely willing to do the same thing. Just to be here if we have questions.
So Todd, you said a summary of what was passed and what was the second item in the narrative?
Well, to the extent I second Diego's point, if there's something off the shelf that HR just issues after every budget cycle of what the recommendations for increases are, both merit and cost of living, that's all I really want. If that doesn't exist, I would ask them to prepare that. If it does exist, we can just get the one that they do for everybody. And then to Jasper's point, if they want to come, I think that's a great ad for us to have as a resource.
I think they issue one prior, right? So the mayor's office already got one from HR. That's probably what they used to issue their recommendation. And then if anything, the delta is going to come from council. So say HR probably already issued a recommendation 3.5 and 3%. And then if council goes above that, then the 3%, it's implied that HR already recommended 3%. If I'm remembering that correctly. But
Right, and the other process for civil service departments, which we are not.
Exactly, there's different classes.
Is the Civil Service Commission will do a separate analysis. Like, for instance, they recommended a 4%, but it's, again, just a recommendation. So the mayor's office or council can do something different and then approve it from there. So there's a couple different levels and a couple different entities that will make recommendations regarding that.
All right. Sorry, I keep hitting the button. All right, thank you. So we can move on to the next topic, right? Next is nominations and elections for chair and vice chair. So I guess I can start off with saying, I would be interested in continuing to serve as chair for at least one more year. I think I have enough energy left in me to do one more.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue in our current setup.
Second.
Jasper's such a great chair. I never have to do anything except ask questions.
It's a good team. It's a good team. So there's been a motion in the second. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say, Jasper, we all appreciate you serving as chair. We know it's a lot of extra work, so thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Like I said, it's a great team. So and that's why I want to make sure that we're like protecting our team. So we're doing everything that we need to do so we don't end up in some of the media that some of the other boards and commissions are doing. So thank you.
Do we know when, is there any estimation on when we get a fifth member? There's nothing on the works.
No, and I said, and I was actually we're going to talk to Laura about this, about maybe having a meeting with the vice mayor, maybe a call or something that we can just talk to her about where, she sees this and, what number is this on her priority list, and understanding that this is a budget time, so she has her hands full, right now, but I don't know if maybe she's waiting for recommendations. We don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the actual holdup is. I knew that there were a couple of people that were in the pipeline, and I had spoken to a couple of them, and they were like, no, nobody's even asked me. So I don't know where it is. So, but I will get with Laura to see if we can arrange a meeting. Because like I said, the meeting with procurement went wonderful. So,
well, at this point, guys, we're so tight as a group that, we're going to have to like really have the right person.
Have to be somebody from
I've
the
been
audience.
with just y'all
we
so
have to
long.
recruit somebody from the audience. But yeah. All right. So there's been a motion and a second, and no further discussion. I'll call for the vote.
Yep.
All right. So all in favor, please say an aye.
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 And aye. Well, opposition. So thank you. And I think that's it for business, right?
Congratulations, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Congratulations.
We got the racetrack. We got, so much going on. It's a lot. But no, thank you, and thank the audience for your attendance today. And I guess with no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.